Malignant was directed by James Wan and it stars Annabelle Wallis as a woman named Madison, who is paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment worsens as she discovers that these waking dreams are in fact terrifying realities. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because I read that off of IMDb, so if you've been on the movie's IMDb page recently, then you probably saw that. I have no other way to describe what this movie is because there's so much more to it than that little line. And trying to talk about it, all of it is kind of a spoiler. This is one of those movies where it's best to go in as blind as possible. In fact, almost disregard that little line I gave you earlier. Wan is a master of horror. He's done a lot of great movies in the genre, and I don't need to give you an introduction to any of them. You know his work. And so I was very excited to see Malignant, him going back to the horror genre, and especially when there are a lot of other things he's having, that's coming up soon, which are not exactly the horror genre. But when it comes to his horror, I'm a huge fan because he understands that there is subtlety to it and it's not always about like jump scares or something horrific happening, but it's also about building up character emotions because when things happen and the characters are in the middle of those things, you want them to make it out alive or, end up in worse places than before. It depends on who the character is. And Malignant continues to understand that, and Wan continues to take that forward with the screenplay by Akela Cooper. There is a really great understanding of what this is doing to our lead Madison, and Annabelle Wallis is terrific in the movie. This review is going to be a little all over the place because this movie was not really talked about much until I think the day before. A lot of things were kept under wraps, and Wan wanted it to be that way because he didn't want any spoilers going out there. And I completely understand because this is the kind of movie that could be spoiled very, very easily. I didn't even see the trailers for this thing, so I don't really know what the marketing may have shown you, but I was genuinely surprised at every turn with this. The fact that he's able to convey this, and along with a really great screenplay, is able to create a story where you're able to sort of understand the tragedy of these characters, and in situations when they're in trouble, you're rooting for them to get out of it safely. The way it's all constructed is incredibly great, and Juan does it again. I really love this movie. I mean, there is a lot of things to be said about it. The fact that it's absolute madness. I think there is a point of time in this movie where you will have things going a certain way and then it'll suddenly dial up to like 30 or something and things will go completely off the rails. That's the moment where this movie goes from being fairly solid, because it does have a slower first act and it takes a while to like sort of set things up a little bit, and then eventually as it gets going it becomes fantastic. But once it does, the final product that you get is one of the better horror movies I've seen this year. In fact, it may be one of the better movies that I've seen this year, period. And a lot of that has to do, like I said, with those aspects I mentioned before, but also a lot of other things help in enhancing the experience, like the gorgeous cinematography. Once again, things are in camera. Those scares do not come out of nowhere in terms of jump scares or anything like that. If there's something there, you'll see it revealed in a very subtle way, which has an even scarier effect. And I love the fact that there are so many of these movies out there right now which are trying to avoid jump scares as much as possible. I am a huge fan of the fact that horror sort of creeps in rather than something that just sort of goes bah or something like that. And the film accomplishes that perfectly. The score by Joseph Bishara is incredible. This is one of my favorite scores of the year now. I would looking forward to listening to it right after this review. And every single thing, even the production design, because this is a smaller budget than something like, say, Aquaman or something like that. I mean, like, that's the other movie that I was alluding to earlier. When you look at that, the stuff that Wan is able to accomplish is excellent. But really, you want to talk about things that happen in the movie in terms of the horror. Wan has said that this is his most, like, violent and, most scary movie yet. And yeah, without giving away spoilers, I think he's onto something. At one point in time, like I said, no spoilers, this is a very hard review to do without giving anything away. At one point in time, things are going to happen on screen which are so crazy that I feel like it's going to divide audiences. I just feel like there's going to be someone over there who's going to be like, I'm not vibing with this at all. I don't like what's going on here too much. And there's going to be the next person sitting right next to you, wherever you're watching this, at home or in the theater, who's going to say, no, I'm loving this. This is great. And I'm excited to hear the conversations that go around this movie this weekend, whether it be on social media or even the comment section down below. I'm so curious to hear what people's thoughts on this are, because the choices, the decisions that Wan makes at one point in time, the storytelling takes at one point, they're quite something. And so, without giving away, like I said, too much, I'm going to wrap up this review a little early. I'm going to try and keep this as vague as possible. The supporting cast, though, I do want to give a shout out to them, especially for one reason, because their characters are not dumb characters. You know, like in horror movies, you always have those couple of characters, right, who are just like, oh, there's nothing like that going on, and then something horrible happens or something like that. In this movie, what's really great about it is that when things happen, they're all sort of they're also very much involved in it, to the point that, you know, they're involved in the story itself. They're not trying to downplay anything. It's like, you know, we're very much in the shit, which I do appreciate as a storytelling, as a narrative feature. I think that's really great. I mean, we're past the point of those characters in a horror movie existing who just exist to get killed or something like that. Nothing like that in this movie. But yeah, all in all, I really, really loved Malignant. Like I said, it does take a while to get going. There were moments where the dialogue wasn't quite as sharp. There were a couple of lines in particular which felt like they were trying to go for humor, but it didn't quite land. There were a couple of moments here and there. There was a couple of acting beats from a few actors which I thought were a little flatter at times. Like, I thought, like, you know, like there was an emotional beat going for something, like they were trying to do something, but then it just kind of like the delivery didn't quite work out. But those were minor issues for the most part. Overall, by the end of it, I was very, very satisfied with Malignant, and I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I'm very, very curious to hear what you guys think of this movie. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know. I think that was my dog barking. As always, if you like this, guys, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.